Good evening and welcome to Real Talk, where every Sunday night we offer insight, education, and resources to in-home caregivers and those affected in their world, the children, the parents, the extended family, and everyone who loves them. And our goal is to offer real-life topics and learning through discussing real issues and offering real solutions. And tonight I am excited to welcome back somebody who's becoming a regular with us, Rachel Lawrence with Homework Solutions. She is the agency partner specialist for Homework Solutions. And tonight we're going to dig into some more issues around taxes and a lot of the changes that are going on in our world because of the pandemic, because of the change in administration, and the change in life, because life happens, right? So first off, welcome, Rachel. It's good to have you back again.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we always love having you on board and you providing such great resources for our audience. That's awesome. And tonight we're going to talk about something that is relatively new, and a lot of people may not even be aware that some recent changes have occurred to something called the American Rescue Plan. And so we're going to kind of talk around that and what that kind of means for our industry, for the caregivers, for the families, all that kind of stuff. And so maybe give us just first, Rachel, before we hop into things. You and I were talking before we got started, but give us a little update. How are you guys doing?
I would say, as all things considered, we are quite well. Starting to see some movement back to normal parts of life, but of course, sticking with whatever is recommended.
Yep, it's hard to know, but following the advice that's out there is probably the best option we have right now. I would sure be glad when we're at a point where we have a really clear understanding of everything. But anyway, I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing well. Well, let's hop into our topic for tonight. So first off, for those who may not know what this is, what are we even talking about when we say the American Rescue Plan?
Sure. Much like about this time last year, there was some legislation that came through that was a huge chunk of legislation that came in pretty quickly that is designed specifically around the pandemic and the issues created by it. Namely, for what we're talking about, it's about employment issues. It's about families being able to have access to and afford childcare, quality childcare. And so there are lots of little parts of this that all wrap together that touch our industry, either at the parents or the employee level. Just different parts touch different people.
Absolutely. And so in this, have they made any kind of changes or updates to kind of maybe the legislation that we're already familiar with that's related to the pandemic? Things like unemployment or the FFCRA pay, things like that. Have they made changes around things we know about already?
Indeed, they have. They've sort of taken what they started last year and started building on it or extending it. So let's start with FFCRA, which is the paid sick leave component. A lot of people in our industry were really familiar with that, especially last spring when things came to a grinding halt. So basically, the government has acknowledged that we're not to the other side yet. This is still something that needs to move with us till we get to the other side of where most people are back to sort of a normal employment situation without needing this extended leave. So what's the same? What's different? So the basis of it all is the same. There's still 2 weeks of sick leave. That's for if you get sick, if you have to care for someone, if you have to be quarantined. And then there's an additional 10 weeks for paid family medical leave, which is really for people whose children are still out of school. That's the main place you're going to see it come into play. So if your kid's school is still closed, or in some cases, if you've sort of chosen to stick with the online model, if there was a choice to partially go back or go back to school, that's where that comes into play. What's different about it? One, they've extended it. So the original bill expired basically New Year's Eve. And so that was a mandated requirement that you had to pay your employees this leave. We saw that come and go. And then what we saw is we saw them sort of put a band-aid on it. They said, well, I mean, if you want to still offer this leave, you can. But there wasn't a lot of direction. And that in and of itself expired at the end of March. So what they did was take it yet one more step down the road. They said, listen, we need people to feel secure in the ability to give this. So what we're going to do is extend it all the way out through September 30th. And again, this is optional still for 2021. It's not a mandate, but there's really no reason for an employer not to go down this road. If you have a great relationship with your employee and they need this leave and you want them to return, really this is a win for everyone because you can allow them to take the leave, you can pay them while they're gone, and then the government is going to give you a dollar for dollar tax credit for this leave that we already discussed, the 2 weeks and 10 weeks. The one other thing that they extended is all of us know that there's a chance that when you get vaccinated that there is a day or two that you don't feel well, or that going to get the vaccination, you might have to take a half day off work because there are lines or wait times, those sort of things. So they've included that as one of the reasons for that sick time. So now if you want to take a half day to go get vaccinated, or the day after you get your second dose, you don't feel so well, you can now use this FFCRA pay for vaccination reasons also.
Fantastic. So if somebody says, hey, I'm just a domestic employer, I have a nanny, I don't normally deal with all this kind of stuff. What does it mean when you say they get a dollar for dollar tax credit? How does that work?
Sure. So from we'll do the employee side and the employer side. For the employee, what it means is if your employer gives you this leave, you are not using sick leave that's already guaranteed to you. This is separate and you use it first before you have to use leave that was already guaranteed, like contractual leave, for instance. For the employer, what it means is basically there are some limitations, but really everyone in our industry is going to fall within the acceptable range. That basically you're saying, okay, I'm going to pay you for your 2 weeks leave while you are out ill for uh, coronavirus exposure. And what happens is I'm going to keep paying you like I always do. Again, within these certain limits that we have articles on. And then on my taxes, I'm going to say I paid this leave out and the government's going to give me a dollar for dollar tax credit. Now, what that means is if you've overpaid, they're going to give you that money back in a return. It's not just a tax credit. It's a dollar for dollar refundable tax credit. So it's not sort of use it or lose it. It goes towards your total tax obligation. So it's really a great incentive for employers because they, in essence, are sort of fulfilling their own unemployment during this period, right? They're letting their person go take sick leave. Yes, they're fronting the money, but the government's ultimately giving it back to them.
Fantastic. And I appreciate that explanation. I understand what that means, but I only understand
Sure.
to learn. I wouldn't have known otherwise. So, what about things like stimulus payments? So, there was stimulus payments before. Some people got more stimulus payments. What's
Mhm.
the latest on all that? Where are we at with it?
Yes. So a lot of people, that was probably really the buzz part of this that people know more about than others, but I like to sort of hit on the high points of it. Most of us know that this has sort of come in multiple levels. The American Rescue Plan, what it's done is sort of added to that. So it's added, everybody's heard this buzz of $1,400, right? And it has added to what you've already received. So it's not in lieu of the other stimulus, it's in addition to it. It's $1,400 for anyone who is making $75,000 individually or less, or a couple making $150,000 or less, that they get this maximum $1,400 benefit. And then they also get the same benefit for children under the age of 24 who are full time students. So a lot of people think it stops at 18, not necessarily. If your 18 to 24-year-olds are full time students, then it counts for them too. And it phases out really quickly. I think the um, phase out stops at something like $200,000 a year for a couple. So this one goes out pretty quickly. There's not a big graduated phase out. It's basically, very quick as to who gets this and who doesn't.
Fantastic. So, if I can use an example, if we are dealing with, say, my family, we're dealing with a family, two parents, two children, both teenagers. God
Mhm.
help me. Um, two teenagers, and say we fall under that $150,000 a year threshold. Is that three payments of 1,400, or is that four payments of 1,400?
So, assuming we meet all of those criteria, each adult gets the additional 1,400 and each child does.
Mhm.
And we're going to pretend in this scenario that you're filing jointly, so it's all coming in on one return. So, really it's a family benefit.
Okay, fantastic. So there's also been some talk about child tax credits being increased. Can you kind of give us an idea of exactly what a child tax credit is for those who
Sure.
might not know, and what that increase is?
Sure. So there's sort of two parts of these that get all mixed up together because the names sound very similar. So I'm going to talk about two different things here. One is literally a child tax credit. This people may be familiar with because we've always had something like this. It used to be $2,000 for most people. Again, once you get to higher echelons of income, these things disappear. But it used to be $2,000. They are taking that tax credit and they are upping it. And now they're differentiating between age groups too. So if you have children 6 years old and under, then, or I'm sorry, under 6 years old, it is $3,600 per child. So you can see that's a big jump from 2000. And then if you have children over 6 years old, all the way up to 17, it's jumping to $3,000. So, it's a pretty decent benefit. These also phase out, but they phase out back to sort of the original limits of $2,000 for couples making all the way up to 400,000. So, it again, we have a phased out system, but this one has a bigger range of who can take it. And nothing disappeared per se. It's just the lower portion of that income level now has a much higher benefit. And then the second one that gets sometimes confused or lumped in mistakenly is called a dependent care tax credit. And this one really has to do with people paying money out for childcare so that they can work. And what that does is again, we are seeing a truly startling increase on this compared to historical numbers. Now, basically, there's an $8,000 benefit for people with two kids, 4,000 for people with one child, for people making 125,000 or less. Basically, they can take up to $16,000 in childcare expenses, and they will get a credit for 50% of that. That's how we get to that $8,000 number. And this again phases out all the way to people making 440,000. So again, a large section of society is going to have exposure to this in one way or another. Those making 125,000 are getting a max benefit. So this is a startling difference, especially for our industry. This, I think, could be a big difference between people saying, I have to have daycare because that's what I can afford, versus it makes so much more sense because I work unusual hours or whatever it is to have a nanny.
Mhm.
And maybe makes those people that were close, daycare versus nanny, now able to go ahead and make that jump to nanny care or private care.
Right. And I know that a lot of people have sacrificed even to make that jump uh,
True.
in the last several
Myself
months.
included sometimes. Yeah.
Exactly, because it provides a one-on-one kind of care versus a group setting, which reduces risk of exposure for sure.
And
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And indeed, and this may be sort of where you're headed, there is yet another sort of piece of this of being able to afford childcare, which are flexible spending accounts and dependent care tax credits. Tanya and I have been along this road so long we can sort of go back and forth and know where we're going.
Mhm.
So basically, with that FSA and dependent care accounts, this is something that is a benefit through your employer if you're a parent. So you either do have this benefit at work or you do not. And so they've more than doubled what you can sort of allocate. How this works is a parent says, I have this benefit at work and I would like to take part of my income before taxes are applied to it and move it over into this account. So you're not being charged your income taxes on it, right? It's sort of sitting over here, then you get your paycheck and taxes are applied. So we used to be able to move a maximum of $5,000 over there if you had this benefit. Now they have upped that. They've more than doubled it. It's 10,500. Um, this is coming into play a little late in sort of your HR department's plan, I guess I'll say. Usually you sort of tell them what you want in the fall for the following year. But part of this is that you can say, wait. I only put 5,000 in there last year because I thought that was the maximum. I need to up that now. I need to go to the maximum of 10,500. So if it's a benefit you have at work, then it's definitely something you want to go to your HR administrator and say, listen, I want to go ahead and max this out.
Mhm. So it sounds like a lot of this stuff really is, if you're not tax savvy, if you're, and let's be real, a lot of people are not. I would
Mhm.
even venture to guess, and this is just a personal guess, but I would venture to guess that most standard American families probably are not real familiar with all the nuances and ins and outs of these kind of things. Where do they find this information? Where can they get help with this kind of stuff?
Sure. So you're right. I mean, we have one of the most complicated tax systems in the entire world. And just because the news covers this or you've watched this and you think, well, maybe I understand a little bit of this, or maybe that's an option for me. You often sort of want to look at the fine print and say, okay, I heard those numbers, but they didn't sink in. Where can I find more information? I would not recommend going to the bill because the bill is about this many pages of very dense information. It's very extensive. So I would go to a trusted financial resource or a trusted tax resource. We have a video that Jay, our president, put out up on our blog. It's on our YouTube that sort of goes through and bullet points this out. And then in addition to that, on our blog, we have it written out. I know some people are better at hearing, some people are better at reading, and sometimes the combination of the two is really what drives it home. So we have that resource for you at homeworksolutions.com. Again, it's also on our YouTube channel. And then, you know, the other piece that we sort of hadn't touched on that I think is important to touch on is also the extension of unemployment. We've talked about all of the advantages of sort of money coming in or keeping more of our money, but a good number of people indeed are still unemployed, and it has extended those benefits as well. So basically, what it's done is it said, we're going to extend what they call UI, unemployment insurance. The feds have said, listen, we're going to come in and help out the states a little bit more too. And they are basically saying that they're going to give an additional $300 a week in benefits, is the max benefit for that. And we saw this happen last year for the $600 benefit. We're now at 300, and they're also extending the period of time that you can get unemployment to 53 weeks of additional benefit. So because we realize this isn't a quick fix, we're not going to be out of this trench 2 weeks from now, and we have a short-term need for this as a country. It's going to be a while till everyone really gets back to business as usual. So they've extended that out for people who are in the unemployment system a little longer than might be typical usually.
Mhm. So a lot to take in tonight. Uh,
Indeed.
for sure. Which is why I wanted to jump on here and have you share about this kind of stuff. Because the minute I saw the information starting to come out, I was like, there's just so much that it's a lot of times feels really overwhelming. And
It
having it in a
does.
little bit simpler English makes it easier to at least have a start of a grasp on it. So I appreciate that. Anything final that you want to share with us that you think people need to know around any of this?
I would say the thing I would leave you with is, don't miss out on this. This is so much money. And it's really tangible money. It's not this sort of ethereal, maybe I qualify, maybe I don't. There are some really set lines here, and your average American middle class family, or your average American middle class, worker who doesn't have children, even with the unemployment benefits and stimulus and things, this is a lot of money we're talking about. You likely qualify for at least some piece of this. So it is worth reading the 2-minute article we have, or sort of sitting down and pulling out that tax return from last year and going, I don't know, how much did we make as a total adjusted gross income?
Mhm.
I don't know if I qualify. I don't recall. My accountant did all of that for me. That stuff's pretty easy to look at on your tax return, to get some baseline information when you read these articles. And the other point that I would stick with is, stay tuned, because if we've learned nothing else in the last year, it is that um, the world is not a predictable place like it used to be. And so you don't want to miss out on things like this when they come down the line. Um, there's so much negative news about the pandemic, and rightly so, that it's nice sometimes to see, I guess I'll call it a silver lining, to be able to have anything in the news that is hope for people, or is something where that's life changing in a good way. So keep your ears open, your eyes peeled. No reason you should miss out on this.
Absolutely. So, Rachel, will you please make sure that we share um, where people can find links to the blog and the videos, so
Indeed.
that we can have that? And if you share that, we'll make sure it gets into the news feed so that we have that, so that everybody has as many resources as they possibly can get. And I can't thank you enough for your constantly being willing to give of your time and your expertise in order to be a support and a help for our industry in a time that we really need it, probably more than I think we probably ever have in as long as you and I have been in this, at least.
Well, I'm always happy to help, and it warms my heart when we're able to show somebody something they didn't understand before, break something complicated down. Um, that's why I love my job.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I know that, again, you've shared some amazing takeaways, and our audience is really going to benefit from it. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Good night, everyone.
Good night. So if you have any questions around this topic or anything related to the American Rescue Plan, or just about your taxes as a parent employing a nanny or a newborn care specialist, or a nanny or newborn care specialist who isn't sure how this all applies to you, please put them in the feed and tag Rachel, Homework Solutions, or Newborn Care Solutions, and we'll make sure that you get answers. And if you're wanting to rewatch this segment or any of our past Real Talk segments, a lot of which include Rachel, you can find those over on our website along with our other content. Just go to newborncaresolutions.com and click on the education tab. And all of our Real Talks are up on YouTube as well. On our channel, just go to their search engine and put in Newborn Care Solutions, Real Talk, and they all come up. So thanks for joining us, and have a fantastic night.